Hello, and welcome to Learn Python 3 the Hard Way, Exercise 1. This exercise video is for macOS 10, but later videos I'm just going to use Windows. For the majority of my recording, it's easier for me, and honestly, all the stuff works exactly the same between all the different operating systems. There's no need for me to do a specific video just for OS 10, when really all you're going to look at is the same text editor, the same browser, and pretty much the same terminal. Now, let me clear this out, come back here, and I'm also going to get rid of that test file. I don't want it around. Okay, and remember, when we're creating this first exercise, we want to make sure that we're saving files in Learn Python the Hard Way directory. So if you add the project to here, it's a lot easier. Let me just do that one more time. Okay. And let me go File, Add Project Folder. Because in the last video I just showed you that there was a project folder, but I didn't quite show you how I add it. And I go like that, and I go Open. There you go. Really easy. Similar thing with OS 10. You just add a directory. I'm sorry, not OS 10. With Visual Studio Code. Now, once we have that, I'm on Exercise 1. And here's the text I'm going to type in. Let me see if I can enlarge that a bit. Now, one thing I want to stress, you are not supposed to be learning or typing from the videos. The book is written well enough that you should be able to just type from the book. That's the whole point of writing the book. If you are a type of person who feels that you're a visual learner, right? This is actually a myth. There's no such thing as a visual learner. If you feel that the only way you can learn to type this code in is by watching me type it in because you're visual, you need to realize that this being typed into here in a video is still you reading text. Just because it's now in a video doesn't mean that somehow magically it stops being text or syntax. It becomes quote-unquote visual. You're just watching me type text. You can totally go and read this on your own without using a video. It seems kind of strange, but there are people who believe that if they see it in a video, somehow it magically is easier to understand, even though it's the exact same thing as what you would read in a book. Now, there are situations where visual media like videos works better, such as installing software, debugging scenarios, watching me debug or break or interact with stuff, interactive things, graphical things like painting. Sometimes learning guitar is way easier to watch a video. It's way easier to watch someone do a technique on guitar. Reading about how to paint isn't very useful. Reading installation instructions isn't very useful. That's where a visual media like a video helps. But for typing text, it's not very helpful. I'm just typing the same text you could read. So I encourage you to break through this thing if you feel like you're a visual learner by forcing yourself to attempt the book yourself. More because when you go to work on some code at, say, a company or your own, no one's going to hand you a video explaining the code. You have to learn to read and understand the code. So it's time to just bust through that and learn how to do it. Now that that lecture is over, let's make the ex1 file. I just held down Command and hit N, and then I'm going to save it right away. It's important because if I save it right away, then what happens is I get my syntax color that helps. See, I get that color there that helps me sort of like read it a little bit better. Everyone uses that, so don't feel like you're weak if you can't read without the color. Even I'm kind of like thrown back when I see raw black and white text a lot of times. All right, and now it's pretty straightforward. I just do print hello world like that. Now, one thing about Atom that I find a little annoying, but I guess it helps. So see how it completed the double quote and the parentheses at the end for me? So a lot of people think they have to use the right arrow to get past that. All you got to do is hit the double quote anyway, and the parentheses key anyways. All I'm typing is just double quote parentheses as if those aren't there. Just think of them as like helping me keep my stuff straight. And you do that one more time. Just hit the quote, just hit the parentheses, and I'm done. That's it. I don't have to right arrow or anything like that. Just type as if those don't exist there. Now, it does run into some problems. Sometimes if you move around a bit and then move back, or if you do quotes inside quotes, it can get a little confusing. But other than that, pretty good. Okay. Now, you are probably watching me type this and thinking, everyone types this code very fast like this. That is not true. You're a beginner. Oh, there we go. So you're going to type code a lot slower. If you're a touch typist, you may not even use a lot of these parentheses and these other characters up here and your numbers too much. They don't show up too often. Quotes and double quotes show up a lot, but things like equals, the less than, the greater thans don't show up as much, especially these brace symbols. So when you type programming, it's going to feel awkward, like you're wearing mittens. That's fine. You're just going to get used to it. That's why I have a whole bunch of exercises of you just typing in code. All right, so I typed that in. Let's see if I did it correctly. Now, before I go and just run it, I'm going to review it really quick. And you can't really see this, but I'm just going line by line with my finger on the left and sort of just doing a quick comparison. Now, my eyes are trained to sort of catch errors because I've been programming for a long time, but yours might not be. So it's good practice for you to do that. I'm going to pop over to this window. I'm going to do Python 3.6 ex1.py. And there we go. It ran. Now, the other part of a lot of these exercises is breaking or modifying it. You're not supposed to just type them in and then move on. You could do that. It's actually fine as a beginner if you can't think of anything. But it's good to try to just see what happens. So let's try breaking this. Easiest way to break it is get rid of one of these parentheses. And let's see what happens. Just get used to the idea that it's totally okay to break things, because you're not really going to damage much of anything. If you're doing some stuff that's really hairy, make a backup of your computer, but otherwise, it's fine. Now, let's see. So what we got when we did that was syntax error, invalid syntax. Let me really increase the size of this font a whole bunch. Okay, so what we got was this, and it tells us on line 3 that that's where the error is, and it tells us in this file. So we pop back to here, and notice our error is not actually on line 3. It's actually the line above it. So here's the first lesson. Whenever you receive an error, it's a clue. It's not an exact error location, because programming languages are sort of universally terrible at telling you where you actually made an error. So what you do is you start where they say, and you compare that line to my line. If it doesn't work, or if it looks the same, right, go up a line and then compare it. Also compare from the end to the beginning. If you do that, you'll find more of your errors more quickly. So I know I need to do that. Pop back, and there we go. It's running. And actually, I think I'm going to even make this bigger. There we go. Let's try another break. Let's try this. Get rid of a quote character. Let's see what we get. EOL, end of line. That's what EOL means. While scanning string literal. So basically it was scanning a string, and it got to here and it exploded. So again, let's go see. It says line 4. We look, it's actually on line 4. And this is another example of where Atom's helping you out, quote unquote, doesn't really help you out. It thinks I'm starting a new string instead of just fixing an old string. So what you have to do is you go like that, right arrow, and delete that one. And that'll work. Kind of annoying, but it helps most of the time. All right, so then the last thing is, let's explain what Python is doing. When you run the file, when you do this, you're actually taking this file and passing it to a program called Python 3.6. It's similar to, well, maybe ls isn't the right one because ls is sometimes built in, but it's things like, cat might be a command. And in fact, we can check which cat. There we go. So cat is an actual program that's sitting in the bin directory in your computer. And so if I do which Python 3.6, same thing. So what happens when I do this command here is I'm telling the computer to run that program, Python 3.6, at that really long place. You don't have to worry about it. And tell it to run this ex1.py. That Python program then loads it, processes it, and starts at the top. And it does each of these things that we tell it to. You're basically just giving the Python 3.6 program commands. You're telling it, print this, print that, print this. One way to think about it is to say, you're going, hey Python, print, and then this is like dialogue in a book. You have narration, and then you put in quotes what people say, dialogue. Same kind of thing. So you can think of Python as narration, right? As stuff that's not said, and then things you say. Another way to look at this is you have a series of commands. That's Python. And then Python hits this quote, and it goes, oh, that's a string. That's text. That's not Python. Reads that, and when it hits the end of that quote, the matching quote, it goes, okay, that's the end of the not Python stuff, and now I can continue doing Python. So Python starts here, processes that command, processes this part for the command, and then runs it. Moves to the next line, processes that command, processes this part for the command, and then runs it. And it keeps doing that until it gets to the end. And that's it. Now, it's way more complicated than that, but that's the beginner version. All it does is it runs commands, and the quotes are sort of like text or things you want Python to say. Okay, that's the end of this exercise. Move on to the next one. And keep in mind, the next one, exercise 3, is going to be using Windows, but it's not a big deal. You'll see it's almost exactly the same screen. Apart from some window Chrome and a couple other little things, it's exactly the same.